Okay, let's do a deep dive and take a look at the Cubase mixer. So the easiest way to load up your mixer, if you go to Studio, you'll notice you've got 3 available mixers within Cubase. My default one is F3 as my key command right there, which just happens to be Mix Console 2. But by all means, you can use any one of these. They all do the same thing. Cubase just allows you to have 3 different types of mixers. If you've got multiple screens, it's very handy because you could have one mixer showing groups and one mixer showing audio tracks or VSTs, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I'm going to load my Mix Console 2 and just click on here, and there we go. It's now populated with the tracks in my project, and if I hit F3, as you can see, that is the key command. It toggles it on and off for me very, very quickly. We looked at the mixer, we did a quick overview, and we're just going to kind of dive into these sections, the 4 sections of the mixer, a little bit more in depthly today. But what I want to do is quickly look at the main area that allows you to see the zones that I currently have active, right? That's probably the most important thing to dial in on your system at home, so that you've got everything you want to see and how you want to see it. So you do that right up here on the top right hand window. Probably the most important thing to start with is, your setup window layout. Now I currently have absolutely everything checked on, right? My left zone, my right zone, you'll notice if I quickly toggle those, they'll disappear, which is doing the exact same thing as toggling these 2 buttons up here. If you notice, if I do that, it grays out and vice versa. But I've purposely enabled everything here just to show you what all of the different icons look like. So if I go ahead and toggle, I'll notice the channel overview just went away, the meter bridge. But like I said, I'm turning everything on because we're going to talk about it and look at it today. So that's the first thing to check. The other thing I'll mention is this cog, you'll notice is up here on the top right. This essentially allows you to choose what you see in terms of your addressable parameters on the top view here. So if I click on that, you'll notice I've got quite a few things checked off or enabled, but let's say I wanted to see my locators, for example. If I click that, you'll notice that my locators just populated, they showed up here. But if I didn't want to see that in the mixer view, then by all means, I can go ahead and say, take the locators away so I have it's less cluttered. So it's up to you what you want to show up there, but that's definitely one of the first things to look at. The zones that we turn on and off are essentially activated here, the left and right zone, as well as using the setup window. And you can navigate through the zone by hitting tab, right? So I'm just cycling through the mixer view here, or all the mixer faders on the bottom. This is the meter or the right-hand zone. We'll talk about some of the other things that are within this zone. We've got the left-hand zone, which has some visibility as well as some functionality to allow you to lock tracks from left to right. We'll look at that in a sec. And we've got our middle area here, which is called our racks. And that has its own pull-down, menus that you can get to, and we'll talk about that once we get to this section. But essentially, those are the 4 main areas. They all have their own little functions and reasons to be there. Let's start with the left-hand zone. It really is your go-to for cycling on and off which tracks you want to see in the mixer, where you want them to live within the mixer. I'll look at that in just a second. It's got a lovely little history feature, which is one of the only DAWs that's currently doing this, where you can go ahead and move a bunch of faders and then undo the history, which is independent to the actual program history. And then there's snapshots. So we'll take a look at that really, really quickly. But first, visibility. So as the word suggests, if I check off or check on these little checkboxes or check marks, I can choose and tell Cubase which tracks I currently want to look at in the mixer. Now this is really, really helpful if you've got a whole bunch of tracks, let's say hundreds of tracks in your project, and you really don't need to see them all at once. You can go ahead and, I'm just clicking and dragging down, and then there you go, a whole bunch of them just disappeared. They're still in the project. Notice if I go back to the project, there they are, the snare, the kick, everything is still there in the project. I haven't changed anything to the actual music or what's happening in my sequence. All I've done is decided, hey, I'm going to filter. I'm just going to make them disappear from my mixer view so I can work and focus on the tracks that I want to work on. So that's the visibility, pretty self-explanatory in that sense. Now within this tab, there are 2 lower tabs. So as you can see at the bottom left here, it says channel, and let's click on the zones. And what the zones give you is an additional feature. It basically addresses all of the same tracks, right? If I go ahead and select channels and decide to hide the 2 guitar tracks and then tab to zones, you'll notice the guitar tracks are still there within the zone functionality, but they're obviously hiding from within the mixer. This always shows all the tracks that you've got in your particular projects, regardless of whether you're hiding some of these from the visibility. Now, what Zones allows you to do is kind of lock the fader or the track to a certain side of the mixer. So for example, if I wanted the kick, the snare, the rack, and the 2 overheads for my drums in this project to always live on the left-hand side, I didn't want my mono in and my stereo in to be in the way, I can choose by selecting the left radio button, and as you can see, they're moving over to the left-hand side. If I zoom out, you'll notice a G&H is a handy little tool to zoom your mixer on and off. You'll see all the faders on the left-hand side are currently locked to the left, regardless of how I'm cycling through what's actually in my project. And similarly, if I go to my stereo out, I want to lock that to the right-hand side. Cubase will make a little region here that doesn't get populated, and it will lock my stereo output, regardless, again, of what I'm scrolling in within the project. So pretty handy little tool. I'm going to quickly put them all back into the center, just for now, but now you understand what that does and how the zones work, as well as the channel visibility. Now, history, as you probably guessed, is pretty self-explanatory. If I do anything, literally anything in the project, so I'm going to move some faders here, some panning, left to right. If I decide to change an EQ, if I quickly go here and do that, add an insert, let's say I wanted to put a compressor right here and change a setting on the compressor, Cubase is tracking all of that for you, so you never have to worry about ruining a mix or changing something by accident and being like, oh my gosh, I can't remember what I did. I don't remember where that fader was. You don't need to worry about that because Cubase is tracking all the history for you. And as I scroll up and down, I can go ahead and choose where the faders or how far back in the history I wanted to go before adding the next thing. And as you can see, once I go back and reset, it'll clear everything that I had done and then start again. So really handy feature, really nice. It's a bit of a lifesaver. It's saved me in the past, and I'm sure it'll help you out in the future. So that's history, pretty self-explanatory. Then we've got snapshots. Now, snapshots is a really, really handy tool, and as the word suggests, it allows you to take a snapshot of your mix at the current stage that you are in your mix. So let's say we just finished doing a pre-mix, we're somewhat happy with where all the levels are, we've done a little bit of EQ on some tracks, we've dialed in the instrumentation and all that good stuff. What you can do is just save a snapshot. So all you do is you go to the little camera icon on the top left and save Mix Console Snapshot. There we go. There's my first snapshot saved for me, and I can name it Mix 1. I can also add notes about it. If I'm happy with a certain part of it or what I worked on, you can go ahead and do that. Let's just very quickly make some changes. Let's add some EQ, arbitrarily just adding things just so you can understand what the software is doing, as well as let's do some panning. And look how powerful this then becomes when I decide to do another snapshot, right? So I'm going to say this snapshot 2, and I'm going to go Mix 2. So now I can toggle between the two mixes really, really quickly. So here's Mix 2, and the way I get to Mix 1, I have to go over here and select Recall Snapshot 1, and watch what happens to all the stuff that I just added. It should just disappear and go to where it was before I had made those changes. You'll get a warning. Recalling Mix Console will delete any insert automation. Do I want to continue? So it doesn't recall the automation, but it'll recall the actual plugin. So you can see here, it's now reset the faders, it's reset the panning, it's got rid of that compressor that I had added. Alternatively, if I want to go back, I'll say OK, and there you go. It's now added the panning, the compressor, and as well as some of the EQ that I had done. So pretty handy, nice little feature that you have there. You've got your snapshot notes that you can talk about right here, and Cubase will keep track of that. So I believe you can have up to 10 mix snapshots per project. So that's usually more than enough in terms of keeping track of everything and having different mixes. So that's the left-hand zone. And let's go to the lower zone, which is really where you'll probably be doing most of your changes. This is obviously where the faders are, your mute, your solos. You know, if I just want to hear the guitar, there you go. This is listen button. It has to do with some preset mixes that you can do, but we're going to ignore that right now. You've got your E, which is your edit channel settings. And this is a pretty handy button to just kind of be aware of in the software itself. Anytime you hit the letter E, it will pull up some sort of detailed icon of whatever it is that you're working on. So similarly, if I go to, I'm looking at my reverse piano, oh, there's an E, it will pull up the exact same thing. So just a good thing to note in terms of consistency with within the software that your E will bring up, in this particular case, your channel settings. It's basically everything you would need to address for each channel. Then you've got your read and write automation buttons here, your input monitor, and your record button. This is currently not addressable right now or grayed out because I don't have an actual physical input assigned to this guitar. So in order to have those buttons show up, let me just assign an actual physical input. Notice what happens to the input monitor and the record enable button have now become something that I can actually turn on, as opposed to these ones which do not have anything assigned in their routing, which we'll get to in a second, but just wanted to show you that there. That's the mixer area, and above the mixer area I just wanted to show you. So of course you can use G and H to zoom in and out, but you've got these little zones here that are all sizable, right? So one of the nice things again with Cubase is literally you can choose your resolution depending on the screen size you've got, and you can change these sub windows so that they fit the things that you want to have in them. The pictures is pretty easy to use. You just double click on an empty area and you can go ahead and choose from a range of preset instruments. This is a guitar. If I wanted to load up a guitar, just hit OK. I'll do that in a second, but you can also import your own pictures from your iPhone. If it's a certain type of mic configuration, you can go and select, use a user library, import the photo, and then you can put it into your project and it'll stay there with your Cubase file. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I've got a lovely guitar here. That's part of my icon. I can also put some text, which is quite nice. So what type of, maybe this is a Gibson guitar that I was using. And, you can put notes on here, or maybe it's a friend that's recording and you want to jot down when they recorded and what day it was recorded. You can do that very easily by adding to the notes, which is quite handy. This is the EQ. You'll notice when I scroll through, the racks area just pertains to this particular section. So I'm talking about the other areas here. This is an EQ snapshot. It's really nice because you can hover, quickly make changes, and then keep going. And then this top area is your meter bridge, which is quite handy. So I've got, a nice meter bridge there that I can dial in and look at all the meters. And this is a channel overview. So that's what you've got at the bottom. Let's toggle over to the right-hand zone. So probably the most common one you'll use on the right hand zone is the current configuration we're looking at, right, which is your meter, and it's the master fader, and it's showing a digital scale. So you've got a whole bunch of other scales here that you can work with depending on what your client or what your deliverables are. For this course we're going to leave it on digital scale, and you've got some different loudness settings. We'll look at that in just a second once we toggle over to the loudness meter. But essentially this is kind of keeping an eye on the level of your project, and in digital scale you never want to go over 0 because then you're going to get digital clipping and it will create distortion on your mix when you're exporting. The second tab with the meter is your loudness level. So this is another way of measuring your perceived loudness of your track. You've got loudness full scale units, your LUFS or your loudness units. You can address different sorts of references so that you can always make sure that you're delivering to your client specifications. I just leave it on master, and then you're kind of off to the races with that. So we're on to the last zone now, the racks part of this mixer. And like I said, it's got its own kind of sub toggle on and off area. I'm going to turn everything on, and everything in here pertains to the routing or the routing. You've got your pre section, which is right here. You've got your inserts you can toggle on off. You can get to EQ, which is quite handy. I'm going to skip the strip right now. We'll get to that in just a second. Your sends are all here. Your cues, if you had headphone mixes. Direct monitoring is another feature. You've got your quick links and a panel that I rarely use. I rarely have those on. And generally, as you saw, if I just quickly toggle some of these off, it just gives me more screen real estate, direct routing, and QSense. I kind of turn all of those off because I'm generally going to work with my routing, inserts, EQs, channel strip, and sends most of the time. So as soon as you click that on, you can see what inserts you've got on a particular track. And of course, you can get to everything by clicking to the E, which is what we talked about before. You'll notice that this Studio EQ is the exact same Studio EQ that's right there. So if I move this down a slot, you'll notice it's gone down a slot right there, and vice versa. They're the same thing, just visually represented on a different way. That's how you kind of address what you want to see in your racks. It's totally up to you what you want to put there and kind of show, but this is generally what I have showing most of the time. You've got racks settings, so you could either show the fixed number of slots, which will immediately take up more room, but essentially show you all the slots that you have available. If you wanted to do that, you can toggle that on and off. I leave it off because I only need to see what I'm actually using, and as soon as I add other ones, Cubase will immediately populate another free one underneath. So for example, if I brought that down, you'll see that, oh, all of a sudden I have a new new one underneath. It's pretty clever in terms of knowing what's going on and how to give you the most bang for your buck with your screen. Okay, so that's the racks, and I did say I'd come back to this. So the strip, let me toggle some of these other icons off so we just have a little bit more screen real estate. I'm going to take the EQ, the meter bridge, and the channel strip off. And now we're just looking at our racks, and I can see the full array that comes with the strip. Okay, so let's take a look at the strip, which is really the Steinberg engineer's way of kind of representing any live hardware mixer that you see in the world today, right? So if you go into a studio that has like a Neve or whatever console, analog console, it will have a similar setup that you're going to have within the strip configuration within Cubase. It's going to have a gate, some compressors, an EQ section, some tools, saturation, and limiters, all within each track. So instead of having you insert all of these things, which by all means you can insert any third-party plugins that you want, but what's nice in terms of saving the CPU power of the computer and just streamlining how Cubase works is they've gone ahead and given you that functionality for every audio track, group channel, VST, instrument. All of those parameters are addressable and for you to use. So if you wanted to add, a gate, you have a noise gate available to you with all of the parameters that you can address. If you wanted to add some type of compressor, tube compressor, vintage compressor, they're all there within and completely customized to the software. So it's optimized and in terms of signal flow and also usage of the CPU. You've got your EQs that you can go ahead, your 4-channel parametric EQ. So I'm just going to keep scrolling down. Which I can do right here. You've got some tools available to you. So de-esser for vocals or envelope shaper, which is really helpful if you want to kind of shape your drum sound. You can do a harder attack, a lower release. The sustain is going to be longer. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can do right from this channel strip section of the rack. You've got tape saturation if you want to add that to make it sound more vintage. And of course, you've got some limiter, some maximizations, brick wall limiter, standard limiter, all addressable for absolutely every single track. So let me just show you how easy and sleek this is. If I wanted to add a bunch of compressors on here, boom, done in one go. I've now added, almost 10 compressors, and as you can see, my CPU usage did not go up very much. So it's very, very optimized. You can also change the order of these. So if I wanted the tube compressor to come before the noise gate, I can just go ahead and do that. And I've now changed the signal flow. But one nice thing is if you go quickly to the channel setting and go to the channel strip, you now can see the exact same things that I just added in a different, easier way to view. So if I change the input here, you'll notice it's doing the exact same thing over here. They're the same plugin. You've also got like additional cooler ways of looking at it, as if I wanted to move the EQ, it's really easy. You just drag and drop and now everything's kind of moving depending on the signal flow. So that's the racks. I'm going to just minimize the strip here and now I have a ton of real estate again. So why don't I reactivate the channel overview, the meter bridge, EQ curves, and why not? I'll put the pictures back and now it's looking something a little bit more to what I like to see in my typical mixer. Let's continue looking at what we can do with the mixer. So if you wanted to change the order of your particular tracks, it currently cannot be done from the mixer window itself. It has to be done from the project window. So if for some reason I wanted my two guitars to be the first things to show up on my mixer, I can go ahead and drag them up to the top, hit F3 to get back to the mixer, and you'll notice they're now on the left-hand side. So that's the only way that you can kind of choose the way that they show up within the mixer at this point. Now let's take a look at configurations. So this little tab here is really helpful, especially if you've got large projects, but it allows you to filter or configure your mixer by type of channel, right? So if we click on here, I'm currently filtering or showing all the types of channels that Cubase has to offer. This particular project, if we quickly go and look at our visibility, has different types of tracks. This is an audio track icon. Looks like the first couple are all audio related. Then we've got a little keyboard here, which tells me this is an instrument track. Some more audio tracks. Here it looks like we've got a group track. Just by the icon, obviously you can read the name here. But essentially, I've got several different types of tracks within this project. And if I want to cycle through or filter through by track type, I can do that with my configurations or this tab here. So I'm going to quickly make them all disappear. Again, it hasn't done anything to my project. It's just a view filter. And I just want to see my instrument tracks, please. And as soon as I do that, Cubase is going to go ahead and populate my mixer with only instrument tracks. I don't have to scroll. I don't have to move things within the project. It's just immediately done for me at the touch of a button. So that's really, really handy. Similarly, if I just want to see audio tracks, bang, it's now given me all of the audio tracks that I have in my project. Or where was my group channel? I think there was one group channel. There it is, and now it's showing. So it's a really nice feature to have if you're trying to find some certain types of tracks or filtering by type of track. You can do that. Obviously, you've got MIDI tracks, sampler tracks. This is really helpful. This is a view filter in terms of showing tracks with data. It's pretty self-explanatory. But what I do want to do is run through this scenario. So configurations allow you to do another custom type of filter. So yes, the one we just used allows you to filter by type of channel, but let's say I wanted to have a group of channels that included VSTs and audio and be agnostic to the type of track. So you can do that by setting up a configuration. So for example, if I wanted to, let's see, I've got a mix or a view configuration. I'm going to get rid of the drums. I'm going to leave the bass. I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to keep this guitar track. I'm going to keep just the lead vocal, and I don't need the group channel, and I don't need the stereo out. Let's say I wanted this to be a custom mixer view, right? Which basically consists of, they're mainly audio tracks and one instrument track, right? This guitar 16 right here is an instrument track. So I wouldn't have been able to do that with the channel type filter, but I can do it with a configuration. So I'm now going to say add configuration, Kev's config, or whatever you want to label it. And I'm going to say, okay. And now I've got a new configuration that only toggles to the type of tracks that I wanted to see. So if I go to VST instruments, or if I go, please show me all, you'll notice that now I have everything in the project. But as soon as I go to Kev's config, it's only going to show the tracks that I had decided to configure for this particular view or channel view. So that's how configurations work. Really, really helpful. It's definitely something I use on my big templates. It's something you should try and work with within your projects if you can. Very cool, and definitely something worth checking out. The last thing I'll mention is this find track, which is really, really helpful, especially if you've got a large project. So if you wanted to find any track, it is text searchable. So if I type in guitar, it's immediately going to filter all the guitars on my project, and it's going to bring me right to the guitar track that I want. Or similarly, bass, it's going to find the bass and it's going to select the bass track for me. So it's a nice little way to kind of navigate and find whatever it is that you're looking for in a particular project. Okay, so now let's look at linking and quick linking and the uses of using those types of features. Linking is really a fast way of moving parameters for a whole bunch of tracks at once. So let's say for this particular scenario, I'm going to move the guitar tracks back to where they used to be, which is right underneath, I think, the bass. And let's just highlight the drums here and go back to the mixer with F3. So here they are. They're all selected. Very easy to select a group. You just hold the shift button and then click, and then now you can see I've selected all those tracks. So let's say this is the perfect mix for my particular drum kit. I'm really happy with it and what we want to keep in terms of drum leveling. But we want to bring everything down by 3 dB. Of course, you could do one by one and move each fader by itself, or you can use Quick Link. Now, Quick Link is up here on the top of your mixer, and if it's not showing up, then all you need to do again is go to your cog here and make sure you've got link group, and I'm going to activate Quick Link. And as soon as I do that, any of the faders that are highlighted will then move together. So I can now move all of these faders together, and they will proportionately raise and lower. It won't change the mix of the particular group, but it'll raise and lower everything proportionately, which is really nice, and that's actually what I wanted to do. So that's how you use Quick Link. Now, if you wanted to set up a link that is more permanent, notice I just turned the Quick Link off, you can do that. And this is permanent linking. It's very easy to do. You just select the 2 tracks you want to link, and you then go up to the top here and say link. You'll get a little menu that pops up, link group settings. I'm going to name this drums overhead. OH, and then you can just choose what you'd like to link. So I'm going to link the volume. I'm not going to do the panning because this is a left and right overhead. I'm going to pan those independently. EQ, I'm going to link the inserts and record enable, but you can go ahead and choose what you actually want to link. So I'm just going to leave it like this, hit OK, and you'll notice the name of the group just got added. Like I said, I'm going to move these left and right, but notice what happens when I move one of the faders. It will move both of them. They are now physically linked. They are working as one, so to speak. If I change one of the EQs on one, you'll notice it's now done it to both. So that's how the link works. It's permanent, it's there, and it's very handy in terms of being able to kind of have tracks or a group of tracks work together depending on the parameters that you select to link. If you wanted to quickly move one fader, let's say these weren't recorded perfectly and one of them, the signal level's a little bit higher than the other, and I want to balance it a little bit more effectively, you can suspend the link very easily by just quickly going to sus for suspend, and I can now move one of these independently, rebalance it as I want, and then deactivate the suspend. And now these will be linked together, but they'll be balanced better depending on how it was recorded and if you needed it to do that. So that's how suspend works and how linking works. Okay, so the last thing we're going to look at is the global settings for the mixer. So when I play these tracks, obviously I've got my meter bridge, all of that good stuff happening on, but I also have a lot of stuff going on in the background. You'll notice all the tracks that have data on them are giving me a meter peak level, right? Which is really helpful. It's constantly tracking the peak level of this particular instrument throughout my song. So it's going to tell me, if I listen to the whole song, what the loudest level is for that particular pass that you just listened to. If you wanted to reset all of that, you go here, and you go to global meter settings and you can go ahead and reset all of the meters. So look what I did now, and you'll notice all of the smaller gray numbers have now reset to -infinity. If I hit play, they're all going to repopulate with new settings. Sometimes it's very important to reset and be able to kind of start from scratch. One other nice feature is this meter type. If I change this to wave, watch what happens. So my meter bridge turns into almost like a vertical way of looking at my audio tracks, right? So notice the waveforms here are being translated by the meter bridge. So it's pretty cool. It's totally up to you if you want to do that. You can get to it very quickly by right-clicking up here instead. I'm going to go to PPM, and now I've got my meter bridge as I was used to seeing. There's an overview of the mixer. As you can tell, it's very customizable. It's got a lot of data, but once you break it down into the zones, it should start making more sense and be a little bit more manageable. What I love about the mixer is you can set it up in any way that you want. So it's showing you the sizes of meters, the types of instruments that you want at any given time, and it's completely, like I said, customizable to your workflow, and it's one of the most powerful things that I think Cubase has to offer.